talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Thank you for showing up and being on the couch with Dr. Judy. I am your host, Walt Lusk, and we are Dr. Judy WTF. And you can pull us on iTunes or Stitcher or listen to us live on, actually, you can listen live on, I'm drawing a blank, Tune In, or right here at the Universal Broadcasting Network in the heart of Hollywood. We are going to do our normal show today, and also at the end, we're going to do, as we usually do, shrink that tune. So stay tuned for a song that we're going to shrink and put it through Dr. Judy's mind map. And this show is kind of a little different, but all the way special. We're going to really talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of therapy and therapists. And we've got the best therapist I know right here, Dr. Judy Rosenberg.
And this is going to be a big discussion because there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to discuss in terms of modalities and what's the best modality to sign up for. Just
Modality?
Modality. Let me explain. There's, of course, cognitive behavioral therapy. Then there's psychoanalysis, and then there's behavioral therapy. There are all kinds of therapies, and there are different research projects that are going on to find out what is the best modality of therapy. And then there are all kinds of controversial issues, such as nature versus nurture, such as medicate or don't medicate. Environment. When to know that your therapy is over, when to know that you need to make your therapy be over,
and actually,
what to look for
I
in a
actually did some
therapist.
research, and on eHow on the internet, which cracked me up, they have 5 things to do and how to fire your therapist from eHow. It just cracked me up. So we're going to talk about that. But you know what else we do here? We take call-ins. So if you want some modality, or you want to change your modality, you call in, get on the couch with Dr. Judy, and we might even give you a free book of her latest book called Lucid Darkness. The number is 323 area code 284-7826. That's 323-284-7826. And if you have queries or questions, you can always write us at info@drjudywtf.com.
And we love call-ins, so
Yes, we
pick
do.
up the phone. I know that a lot of you out there are in therapy or you're considering signing up for therapy. And I think it's really important that you do your research and that you research not only the therapist, but you really research what kind of therapy and therapeutic interventions are right for you. And we're going to talk about a lot of details here tonight. So there's going to be a plethora of information.
And as a friend of mine used to say, who was a therapist, the best investment you can ever make in yourself is to get in therapy.
I think so. And when you have a match, and I just want to say this, sometimes I am not the best therapist for everyone, and that's because there is a kind of a working alignment, you call it, if you will, an X factor or chemistry that occurs between the patient and the therapist, and not everyone is for everyone. And I think that an ethical and responsible therapist will know his or her limits, will know that that match is not a good match, and I think that it is a good idea for people to spend at least one or 2 or 3 sessions interviewing therapists, if not in person, at least on the phone.
Absolutely.
And find out, I can't put it a better way, but how the vibe is. And just see if the communication is flowing, if there's a level of comfort.
Would the C word fit? Chemistry?
The chemistry
Ooh.
between the therapist and the patient. And there are just so many factors here. So tonight we have a lot of articles and a lot of material and a lot of thoughts that I want to share with you, and a lot of information that I want to convey about the way I work and why I work that way, and what
how
switched
Judy
for
is
me.
Heads and shoulders above the herd
Well,
That's my opinion.
Thank you for tooting my horn, Walt. I do appreciate
my
that.
personal unbiased opinion.
Okay, your unbiased opinion.
And yes, I have been in therapy.
And
yes, I need therapy.
Do you need therapy? Really? How about therapy?
Well, I need that too, but yeah,
Okay.
I need a lot of help in general. I'm a numbers person, and I pulled an article that these are little older numbers, but it'll give us an idea how much is actually spent, how much we Americans spend on therapy, and in dollars from about 5 years ago, it's $55 billion a year on psychotherapy and medication. I'm sure a lot of it's medication, and there are over 500,000 therapists in the United States.
Okay, so this is just the United States, correct?
Yes,
$55 billion in the United States.
$55 billion.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I mean that's a lot of dough. That's a little over $1 billion a week.
All right. Now, as a psychologist, of course, I had to be in therapy, and I've been in lots of different therapies, and I cried a lot because many times in the therapeutic experience, I felt that I spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of venting, and I didn't really make any paradigm shifts, unfortunately.
Did you ever think you were going crazy?
Did I ever think I was going crazy? I momentarily think I'm going crazy, and then I have to pick myself back out of the darkness, panel 1, the darkness, and get back into the light. And part of my light, I feel, is making a difference in other people's lives. So tonight, I hope I'm going to make a difference in your life and educate you and edutain you into...
and as we say here, you know what? If you feel like exploding or imploding, don't do either of those. Just unload by picking up the phone and calling us. And get on the couch with Judy and maybe me. Our number is 323-284-7826.
So one of the reasons I was motivated to create a plan, which I call the Be the Cause Mind Map System, which you can access via Dr. Judy WTF. And if you're... .com. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I love my fans.
I do too.
You do too. So one of the reasons I decided to put together a very, very tight system with a real plan behind it is because I feel that therapist and patient must be on the same page. And in my case, the same mind map. Because it's just not fair when we as therapists, and I hope a lot of therapists are out there listening. I love the people in my profession, and some of the people in my profession, I'm going to be bluntly honest, I'm very disappointed in some of the practices out there, and I hope I hear from some of my colleagues, because this is a very, very important area to keep real and to keep fluid and to discuss, because I think what I really do respect about my colleagues is that we're all in this profession to truly help people. I mean, after all, we could pick something that's going to make us a lot richer, like I don't know what, but it's not always the profession to get rich quick on.
Absolutely not.
So truly, I really want to acknowledge my colleagues out there that have a heartfelt desire to be helpful. And sometimes I truly don't think that we're getting the right supervision and the right input in terms of how to go about doing the therapy, how to keep it very, very fresh, very fun, because if you lose your audience, you're going to not be able to help people. And also how to keep it focused so that you're going to actually move people from the problem through the process of dismantling the problem and to the solution. And if you have the mind map up there, please put it up there, because
the mind map was something you developed over a dozen years ago. It's her own system. And from what I've read here, it's best to have a system and focus on goals, which we're going to definitely talk about. Mm-hmm. It's three things. It's from the challenge, I hate problems, through, and then to, of course, a solution.
Yes. So
and you can look at it, of course, if you're not listening to us live at www.drjudywtf.com.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, having a plan is very, very important, because people actually love the fact that I have a treatment plan. You'd be surprised how many therapists do not really have a treatment plan. They'll call themselves behaviorists, or they'll call themselves cognitive behavioral therapists, or they'll call themselves psychoanalytic therapists. And some of the individuals in my profession truly do have a plan. It's just that it's really important for them to communicate to the public. It's important for you to know what is the plan. So the first question that I might ask is, what is your treatment plan? What is it about my symptoms or my presenting problem that you're going to focus on and help me get to my goal? And if the therapist is not asking you, what is your goal in therapy, beware, because that to me spells open-ended therapy. And to me, that also spells, oh my God, I can keep you here forever and ever. We're not really going to talk about your goals. We're just going to talk about your process. And processes can take years and years and years and years. And sometimes it is appropriate to be in therapy for years and years and years, particularly if you have a very, very severe, we call it the cluster B personality disorders, and that is the borderline personality disorders, the narcissistic personality disorders. There are some very, very chronic and steeped in pattern personality disorders that are really, really hard to get at. However, I feel that I've had a lot of success by staying very focused, and it doesn't seem to always take years and years and years to move somebody through. The other thing that I wanted to talk about...
That's what I'm saying is that's what I think a lot of people like your therapy and you as a therapist is because inherent in all you do is an automatic system plan, an automatic treatment plan.
Yes.
You know, a system to identify, hey, what is the core? What is the cause? What is the root problem of what you've got? And then once that's identified, then working through that to work toward a goal, a solution. And it's not some darn Band-Aid.
No, it isn't.
No,
and
it's
we're
not.
going to talk, I'll touch on it right now, the difference between change and paradigm shift. That is a huge concept that I want to get into.
Yeah, we've got that here. Just to give a little intro, there was a study done about 10 years ago that said that basically they found that patients improved most dramatically between their 7th and their 10th session. The average sessions was anywhere between 6 and 12. That people stayed into. But 88% found improvement even after one session. But you're talking about paradigm shift. Therapy can and should focus on goals and outcomes, and people should be able to graduate from it. Okay? It's a matter of approach, as we're talking here and what Judy's talked about. Many patients need an aggressive therapist who prods them to face what they find uncomfortable, and that is change. Okay? There's a difference between feeling good and changing your life. And so the change ultimately is a paradigm shift, right?
Yes, it is. Because if you're going to stick with symptom management modalities, what you're going to do is basically shift the person from one symptom to the other. Unless you get to cause, which is why my system is very, very focused and thorough. I feel that I've created a very thorough system because unless you get to the cause, you're not really going to dismantle the underlying, and you're going to be in what I call symptom management mode. And symptom management mode goes with modalities that a lot of PPOs and HMOs love because they like to get people in and out of therapy quickly because this is a numbers game.
Absolutely,
so let's bring on the economics of this profession. I have to market myself aggressively. Why? Because I pride myself on graduating people quickly.
You
not because I'm
patience
pushing them out, but because really in 10 sessions, we look at each other and we say something like, I think we really have accomplished our purpose. So what do you think about being on a maintenance plan? So maintenance plan might be that they come back 3 weeks later, a month later, or maybe they want to do that for a while and then come in every 3 months or come in every 6 months or come in at the year anniversary. An example is I work a lot with smokers. And smokers have a very intensive treatment plan, especially when they're doing a cold turkey approach, because we need that one-on-one time to get them from one day to the next, to the next, to the next. And then after that, they need to know that they're coming back for follow-up because the addict mentality is really sneaky.
It's very sneaky.
Yeah,
Yes, it
and
is.
unless you have a support system and know that you have an appointment,
and, well, that's being
they'll
accountable.
sneak out
is what
the
it
back
is.
check
Yeah, they will.
in terms of the addict mentality. So there's a case where a very tight system has to be created. And I just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of one of my stop smoking patients. It was really, really nice because he really did everything that I said. He came back, that is 1 week anniversary, and he came in at his 1 month anniversary, and he came in at his 3 month anniversary, and he came in at his 6 month anniversary, and he came in at his 1 year anniversary, and a year later he really was very done with it. I'm not just talking about physically done with it. He was very emotionally done with smoking.
That's awesome.
So it's really a pleasure. And even at that year anniversary, I will tell him, because I'm really talking to the addict, I'll see you in 6 months. Why? Because then the addict knows, oh, I'm responsible to come back to this person to report in 6 months and follow up. So it's just really a good idea to have that out there as a check-in point. So that's a really specific case where smoking, it's all or none. You stop, you don't stop. Well, what about if you're dealing with depression? What about if you're dealing with anxiety? What if you're dealing with overeating? What if you're dealing with something more severe like a personality disorder? So how do you define your goals? A lot of people come in and their goal will be something like, I want to have better self-esteem. Okay, fair enough. Or I want to be less anxious, or I want to be less depressed. And one of the things that you want to look for in your therapist is he or she going to take some sort of measurement, and not necessarily a test, but some sort of even an informal test. One of the things I love to do is if a patient of mine circles all these symptoms, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I can't sleep well, my self-esteem is low, I'm overeating, I will rate them right away, day one, on a 1 to 10 scale. How anxious are you on a 1 to 10 scale? How depressed are you on a 1 to 10 scale? So
You've called me many times to say, hey, I have a patient that was depressed. She was a 9 or he was a 9.
Yeah.
And within 4 or 5 sessions, and literally it's either sometimes it's a couple of weeks or a month,
right,
they're now a 4.
Right.
And they were a 9, which is like, well, 4's high. No, it's not. That's a 50% reduction over a 50% reduction from a 9, for goodness sakes.
That's
unbelievable in that period of time.
It is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. It is so unbelievable.
And they feel free, and hey, this stuff works.
Yeah. And I've been doing, I used to do traditional therapy for longer than I'm doing the mind map therapy. It's only in the last 2-3 years that I've been using the mind map religiously. And before then, I was a little bit
You're dabbling
floundering
in it. Yeah.
and quite frankly, bored because the patient would vent and I'd feel there was a feeling inside of me that I really wasn't doing this person a service beyond making them feel good for the day. And that's not what I wanted to be representing as my therapeutic modality. I wanted something much more permanent, much more integrated into the fiber of their being. I wanted to create something that wasn't going to be just good for today or tomorrow or next week. I wanted it to be sustainable. So I started studying principles of sustainability, and I even have a logo that represents sustainability. And if you look on my panels, panel 7, which is the paradigm shift, which is labeled cause interconnection,
right,
which is the paradigm shift,
yes,
is really about sustainability. And why? Why sustainability? Because what we do in the course of the therapy is specifically go to the human disconnect, which causes the wound that then turns symptomatic.
Well, it's funny you should talk about, the therapy you used to do. I have a friend of mine who's been to many therapists, and he says, ultimately, all a therapist is a friend you go see that you pay for to go have a conversation with for an hour. And I thought, there's a lot more fun things I can do to pay a lady
right.
an hour of time and have a little more fun doing it.
Yeah, but hey, good point, Walt. Never thought of it that way.
But if you do have a paradigm shift or want a paradigm shift, give us a call. Telephone number is here at the studio, 323-284-7826.
So going back to what is thorough therapy, now the psychoanalysts were on the right track. And that's why we decided to name the show WTF, What the Freud. Because I honor Freud, because I think Freud was the first one who was on it, and not only on the couch, but on it
he was on the couch.
In terms of his brilliance to know, so to bring to our profession so much. Number one, that these wounds are caused in our childhood, that there's a disconnection occurring, that there's an unconscious, a preconscious, and a conscious. And the more we can bring things from the unconscious space into the conscious space, the less we're ruled by our unconscious, which is really mastering then our blueprint of our life, which is not a good thing if our unconscious is so buried down there as a result of injuries. So I think that's a brilliant contribution. Another brilliant contribution is the fact that the dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, because when we're sleeping,
the dreams are the royal road to the unconscious.
Yes,
Absolutely, that's true.
Yes, a royal road to the unconscious.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and then there are other royal roads, and one of the royal roads that I use are symptoms, because I feel that symptoms are hieroglyphics, or they're cues and clues that point to the cause that happened in the unconscious state, and I call it the wounding period, which is always the first 0 to 2 or 3 years of life.
First few years of life.
These are pre-verbal, meaning pre-verbal times when you didn't know, you couldn't talk, you have no memory there, and these injuries that occur in that era then manifest later as anxiety, as depression, and then what we tend to do in our profession is we tend to label them nicely and put them in a book called the DSM.
Okay? Gotta have that DSM.
And then the DSM is a manual that lists all the symptoms and all the symptoms that match the diagnosis, and many times you'll see a list of things that describe what it is to qualify to be majorly depressed or to have a post-traumatic stress disorder.
Well, also the insurance companies have to have some form of diagnosis.
That's right.
If you're going to go through your insurance.
Yeah, that's right. So now we've got a lot of layers. We've got insurance involved. We've got the interfacing between the therapist, the insurance company, and the patient. Patient comes in and says, "Do you take insurance?" And I look at the person and think, "Well, what kind of insurance do you have?" "Oh my God, your insurance pays less than I pay my plumber." And so now we've got a little bit of a conundrum here. So there's that interface. So one of the things that you want to know, and you want to definitely ask your therapist, is how much do you cost? Are you negotiable? Do you have other providers who can work on a sliding scale fee in your clinic?
A sliding scale means that's based upon your ability to pay based upon your income.
Correct. Do you have any low fee or pro bono slots? And the way I like to run my practice is that I like to have full fee patients for those who can afford me. I like to have my range of fees, and then I like to offer people who are really in dire need a sliding scale fee for the time slots that I can afford, and I call that my volunteer work. Okay?
It's a way to give back.
It's my way of giving back,
Right.
because I'm busy and I don't necessarily have time. I used to go feed the homeless a while ago, but now I don't do that, so I've created a volunteer work within my profession. And then I also have a lovely intern, Elizabeth Crane, who is a PhD candidate, and I supervise her, and she sees people on a sliding scale fee basis. And I have a wonderful life coach and assistant, Josh Galitsky, who is also helping me write my Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect book. Hopefully will be out in the next month or two.
A couple months.
Yes. Yeah. And so I like to offer alternatives to my patients so that if they cannot afford my services, if I do not have time to see them, then they can see other people who are trained in my mind map system. So that's another question to ask your therapist. Okay, what are your fees? I can't afford you. Are you could you work with me for a handful of sessions at this and this fee? And then you negotiate.
There's some other questions here that are kind of pretty common I found.
Sure.
The first is, what problems can my therapist help me with? And I know that's a really generally broad question, but does anything come to mind?
I think that when you ask that question, what problems can my therapist help you with, that therapist should have a wide range of problems that they can help you with. And people ask me, Dr. Judy, what do you specialize in? And I say systems, my mind map system. I don't care what problem you bring me. I don't specialize in anxiety or specialize in depression or specialize in sexual dysfunctions or specialize in phobias, because these symptoms are hieroglyphics or cues and clues, if you will, that point to cause.
Something
and what
deep,
I'm
something
interested in is looking to the cause, because that cause will tell me what happened back in the day and why they're expressing their pain in that format. So rather than becoming a specialist in symptom management techniques, I now became and am a specialist in looking at the entire system, because this is all interconnected. And if you look at anxiety, let's look at three things, okay? Sure. Very common reason people call me. They're anxious, they're depressed. Let's see, anxiety. Yeah, let's stay with anxiety, depression, and anger. Okay. That's pretty common.
Okay.
Now, if you look at those three as separate entities, you're not wearing a correct lens on the matter, because anxiety and depression are very interconnected. And so is anger. Because if you study the material, and hopefully your therapist has, depression is anger turned inward. Thank you. You know the drill. Okay.
Yes, I do.
So,
and for example, if somebody who's radically frustrated, that the frustration is really anger.
That's
it's a form of anger, but it's not really anger in its true sense, but it's in the arena of anger.
Right. And if let's say somebody says, "Oh, Dr. Judy, I'm here because the court sent me here. I want to do anger management techniques, and so I've got to be here." So, okay, anger management techniques without knowing the cause. So now we're going to teach this person
WTF.
how to, really WTF. Okay, this is where I get frustrated with my own profession.
Yeah.
WT. Big F, okay?
Absolutely.
And that's because, what are you going to teach this person? Communication skills, how to count to 10 before they fire that rifle,
yes.
or clobber somebody over the head. I mean, good idea. Okay,
maybe count to 10 after they fire the rifle.
Maybe, okay, or count to 10 and run. Okay, and I'm not joking about this. Okay, there's a time and place to do that, but without going to the cause and seeing what it is that they're projecting on another human being that they have been repressing from those unconscious and repressed childhood years, you will be forever managing these symptoms. So it's like the little boy, that little boy with the finger in the dike is leaking.
Yes,
it's
and
a story
starting to crack.
Yeah, Grimm's fairy tales, one of those fairy tales. So he puts his finger in one hole, and then it sprouts another leak, and there's another hole, and then he has 2 fingers, and now it's 5 fingers, now 10, and then the whole thing is just coming at him, and he doesn't know how to manage it. That's how I think of symptom management techniques. And then on top of it, you get the pharmacological companies involved.
Oh, yeah, let's throw drugs at it with a boatload of side effects.
Okay, now,
Now,
I am going to say up front that there is a time and place for medication. There are certain people who have so many stressors on them that they really are bleeding through emotionally. And in order to quiet them down, in order to do the work, we may need to temporarily, I call it a psychological cast, recommend that they go to a psychiatrist. And now there are other psychotropics that are more natural out there, that do the same thing, and I love the idea
without all those dang side
without
effects.
all the side effects,
right.
Okay, and having a more organic and a more balanced way to balance our neurotransmitters. And of course, there's always diet and exercise right?
Makes a big
and
difference.
we're an integrative system. We're food and mood, and mood and food. We had an
And
episode
we did
on that.
earlier, let's see, last year sometime, you can look it up. We had a whole episode on food and mood.
Correct. So,
Yes, we did.
so another question you want to ask your therapist is, are you aware of how the mind and the body interact? Are you going to also talk a little bit, not doesn't have to be session upon session, but about food, about exercise, about my mind, my body, my spirit, my lifestyle, the people that I surround myself with.
Exactly, association and people that.
Correct. I have a woman in my practice. No, I have many people in my practice who have a lot of work stress. Okay, they're in toxic environments. They need to get out of that toxic environment. They need to have boundaries. They cannot allow themselves to continue to be at that particular workplace, because no matter how good they are at managing that job, the toxicity of the environment is going to overload them and blow a fuse, and sometimes land them in the hospital with tremendous levels of stress.
It's the way of their body to tell them, hey, you got to get out of there or you need a vacation. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
Yep. And another question is, which aside from the fact that the court ordered me to come see you, when is it time to seek help?
I think that it's really great to be proactive about it. That's my opinion.
Well, it's always better to be proactive than reactive. That's true.
It is. So a lot of times people will come to see me when they're in panel 4, 5, 6, which is chaos, defense mechanisms, and implosions and explosions.
Right. The chaos from their wound. They've lived with their wound their whole flippin' life, and all they know is the wound, and they want to live with it. They think. And so they defend it to the hilt, and then of course some issue or a situation occurs where it implodes or explodes, and then that's the best time or the ultimate time to
I'll ask
ultimately
this,
deal with it.
Right, I'll ask this of you and you out there. When is it a best time to go to the doctor? You feel a little lump? Do you wait till the lump is the size of this huge grapefruit, or do you attend to it right away? Or better yet, do you eat well and exercise and monitor your mental health, and even go to seek some help so that you can learn better communication skills, so that you can learn about the childhood wounds that may actually be, how would I say this, cracking or fragmenting your perception of life. And you know that you're fragmenting and misperceiving life when people look at you and say, WTF? Why did you think that of me? Or why did you project that on me? Or when you're finding yourself utilizing substances to make yourself feel better, including
self-medicating
food.
Yourself is what you're doing.
Self-medicating yourself. Self-medicating yourself
Oh,
is
yeah.
redundant. Okay. Self-medicating. You know what I mean. So if you find yourself behaving in ways that are not really furthering you, if you're not flowing,
that's addressed in one of the excuses or reasons to let go of your therapist. So, what is we already addressed this one, but it's a question. What is the typical length of a therapy session?
Of a therapy session?
Yes, what is the typical length of a therapy session?
I'm kind of generous. I like to give people anywhere from 50 minutes to a full hour. And if they're paying me full fee, I give them a full fee hour.
Okay.
When I take insurance, I stop at 50 minutes.
Okay.
And that's the way I conduct
there it
my
is.
business.
Time is money, money's time.
Right.
How soon will I feel better? I mean, everybody wants results and they want it yesterday.
I think that better has to be
quantified?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that at the end of each session, it's important for the therapist to regroup with the patient. I actually have people mind map their process. Okay, what did you learn today? So now, do you understand the wound? Do you understand why you're reacting that way? Do you understand why your self-esteem is low? Do you get that this is a perceptual problem? So I think feeling better right away in terms of having hope.
Well, we also are living in a microwave society, right? I mean, I'm going to see you for an hour, and I want to be a new man in an hour.
Well, that's not going to happen, okay?
I know,
Amen?
especially not for me, but
I didn't say that. You did, Walt. Okay, but doesn't happen in one session. Although I have had very, very profound sessions where people have said, I really got what I needed out of this. I had a couple recently, and they didn't really have any very heavy duty issues. They had some communication skills, and they had a session with me, and I did a little bit of follow up, and we communicated, and the husband said to me, you know what, we're doing really, really well. Thank you for the communication skills. And I do use a peaceful healing dialogue, which I'll be happy to send
PhD,
you
peaceful
for
healing
free
dialogue. Yep.
if you do communicate with me. And
And
I
you know
could
what,
send
Judy and I
that to
worked on
you.
this, and it's about 18 different things that you can have what we call a PhD, peaceful healing dialogue, and it's all on one page. You can follow the bouncing ball, and all you got to do is send it to info@drjudywtf.com, and we'll just shoot it right back to you, one page on how to do that. So that's definitely for free.
Walt, I have so much to say on this subject of therapy and therapists and the right kinds of therapy and so on. And I think that it's really, really important for the therapist to continue to get feedback from the patient, because after all, therapist-patient relationship is a relationship.
Absolutely.
And so it is the obligation of a therapist to let their patient know, look, I'm learning you, you're learning me. If there's something that I say or do that isn't in line with what you're thinking, then please let me know and we'll adjust this together. So this is a co-creation, if you will. So if your therapist is just kind of hammering you with what to do rather than interacting with you and co-creating a way with you, then it may be time for you to fire your therapist.
Which is a perfect end to reasons to fire a therapist. I got a few here real quick. One of them is you don't feel listened to.
What did you say? No, just kidding.
Ideas you can't fathom, forgets important details in your life. They can't seem to remember your name, for crying out loud. Okay? It's time to move on. Next is reason to fire a therapist. They focus on his or her ideas. They force their ideas on you. They push us to look outside ourselves and examine our unquestionable assumptions. Bad therapists push religious, political, and other beliefs. Sexual advances is one. We don't need to go any further with that. They, never touch you and all that. You like yourself less. I thought this was really interesting. You like yourself less and less after each therapy session. Okay? Implanting ideas that make your life and self-esteem worse and not better. That, to me, would be a real big reason to fire your therapist. Conflicts over medication. Enough said on that. And then last one, and this one, I got a couple more, but your therapist does not respect your relationships. It doesn't matter whether you're in a bad relationship or a good one. The therapist's goal is just basically to help you get through whatever you're trying to get through and not pass judgment. If they criticize someone in your life or pushing you to eliminate someone, and it ultimately really doesn't matter who it is. That's my personal opinion. It's time to move on and fire your therapist. Okay? A couple more, because right here it says it's human connection between two people. They look at the clock. How about this one? They look at the clock more often than they look at you. Maybe they're not interested in you. Maybe they have their own issues they're not dealing with. They take sides if they're in couple therapy, which is really bad, right? You got 3 people in a room, and two of them gang up on the other. The therapist and one of the couple. That's just too crazy. And they start sessions late. I feel it's a personal thing. It's lack of respect, okay? But they start late, but they end on time, okay?
That's bad.
Or they meet you outside for therapy, which of course is outside of therapy for social stuff. So that might be some reasons to fire your therapist. We'll go over a few more in a moment.
And ultimately, we're talking about wounds of childhood, which is a true human disconnect.
Absolutely.
And so, if there is not a sense of heart-to-heart, if there's not a sense of connection with your therapist, then we must remember that the most powerful healing force on the planet is unconditional love. And if there's not a sense of care, regard, and real desire to to help you grow as a human being. If you don't get that feeling from your therapist, if it's too mechanized, even though I have a mind map, my therapy's not mechanical.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's fun.
Absolutely not.
We spend a lot of time laughing, or sometimes I'll share something about a failure of mine so that I'll give them a gift about a mistake that I made so they don't have to repeat.
There it is. That's wisdom.
So another thing, that's a good point. Sometimes if you're an older individual, whatever that might mean to you, it might be a good idea to match yourself with somebody that's age appropriate, just because you might feel that that person has lived and that person has experienced and that person can understand you and the era for which you come. And that's not really a bad idea.
How about if, for example, I'm a guy and I'm in a marriage and I'm having issues with my wife, right? So I'm having a couples thing. Would it be more advantageous from your experience, or if at all, if I went to a male therapist or a female therapist?
Only if you think it's best for you to go to a male or
So in
female
other words, it would
therapist.
just be personal choice. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I've got two things we can cover real quick. How to fire your therapist. There's 5 things. Or we can go through and then we'll finish with what to look for in a therapist. How's that?
Okay.
All right. So this is actually from eHow and how to fire your therapist. Oh, that was amazing. First is do some soul searching. Make sure it's the right decision to fire your therapist. You know, if you're facing an issue, if you don't want to face your issue instead of firing your therapist, is that really the best option? Okay. Next is schedule a final appointment. You know, have some closure, right? You may get some good advice during your final session. Third, in terms of how to fire your therapist, is be prepared for resistance from your therapist. There's a plethora of reasons why, right? They may feel they're helping you. They may need to pay their rent this week, okay? You shouldn't assume that the final session with a therapist will be an easy task. Prepare yourself. It's literally like a breakup, as one article said. You know, it's like you've got a relationship. You have a relationship.
And I just
you're
wanted to
breaking up.
say, hopefully, if you're not feeling that the therapist is helpful, that you're communicating all
Right.
along with
Absolutely.
your therapist, so it doesn't have to be one
ambush.
clash of the,
they're an
clash.
ambush.
Right. It just could be, look, I'm not sure if this is working for me, and let's see if we can be more solution oriented about this. What should we do? This is not exactly aligning. So each person has to give the other human being a chance to see if they could fix it. And if they can't, then it's time to fire your
I got
therapist.
2 more. Request copies of anything you want to take with you, such as your test results or intake reports, or the therapist might be reluctant to give you those, but in some respects, it's your information. And lastly is give your therapist contact of your new therapist if you feel it's appropriate. So obviously, what you've invested in the previous therapist might help you, get further on in your newer therapist, which obviously suggests that you should find a therapist.
And an ethical therapist will say, okay, I support you in your decision, and is there anything that I could do to refer you to another therapist? Do you need 3 referrals? Because that's the appropriate way to handle this, is to give 3 referrals to the person. If they have somebody else that they're seeing, then you could offer up your notes, and you can offer up this bridge so that they could call and get updated, so that the person doesn't have to rehash all of their information. I think that's the ethical thing for the therapist to do.
And now the converse is what to look for in a therapist, either after or if you're considering firing it, or more importantly, if you feel you want, which I said earlier, is the best investment you can make in yourself, in a therapist. Keep shopping until you feel comfortable with someone. You should believe that they understand you and that they are helpful. Next is trust your own sense of whether someone is helpful. You gotta follow your intuition, your gut on this one. Okay, it's a very important relationship you're establishing. 2 more. Give your therapist a chance, such as a handful of sessions. Then assess the connection and usefulness. So again, evaluating, right? That's a goal. You have to have some goal approach. And lastly, set specific goals and the outcome, which obviously is one of the things that the mind map does brilliantly well. Assess your progress after, and it says, a dozen sessions. So that's just some helpful hints on how to find a therapist and how to break up from your therapist. So what have you found one of the big keys and real reasons why you've been so successful in your therapy using your mind map?
I think the primary reason people come to see me, and I ask them, I have great Yelp reviews, so a lot of people
Yes, you do.
have Yelped about me, and then they read the comments, and
Okay.
then they feel a sense of why they're coming. I have a website so that they can do research on me. They can see the mind map. They can listen to the radio talk shows, get a sense of me. So I'm not quite a stranger when
unknown
they come
entity.
in. A lot of people refer to me, so then they can have that past history of
Absolutely.
my friend
I know
came
you get
to
a lot of
see
referrals.
me, and that's just really a great way to find a therapist, just through referral through a friend. And I think the fact that I have a system, and I say right up front, I'm not a venting therapist, and I'd like you to consider committing to 9 more sessions beyond this, because I really want to take you on a path and a journey from, through, to, and I ask that you don't get off the ride until there's been that opportunity for the paradigm shift and an integration.
That aha moment.
Yes, and many aha moments.
And you know what happens?
Well said, Walt.
And with that, it is now time for our Shrink That Tune. Hallelujah. This one is a song written by Teddy Pendergrass. It was by request. Don't Leave Me This Way. It's a little older song, but I think it's rather apropos. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read the lyrics of the song, and Dr. Judy's going to interpret it through her mind map, and then we're going to play the song. So stay tuned. So don't leave me this way. I can't survive. I can't stay alive. Without your love, oh baby, don't leave me this way. I can't exist. I surely miss your tender kiss. Don't leave me this way.
So I picked this song because obviously it's for lovers, but I thought, don't leave me this way, like the therapist thinking about the patient, don't leave me this way, I'm dependent on you too, or the patient thinking, don't leave me this way, because sometimes the therapist has to fire the patient.
Yes, indeed.
Okay,
It's
or
a
the therapist
yeah.
has to say, that's enough already,
Yeah.
where this is not working, I'm referring you.
And as I say, it's a two-way freeway.
Correct. So don't leave me this way talks to the dependency on both ends. Okay, there are many levels of dependency. There's emotional dependency. There's the habit of seeing the person. They're on a schedule. There's the monetary dependency from that the therapist may have on the patient. So this is speaking tremendously to the dependency upon the patient, let's say on the therapist. I can't exist, meaning that therapist has now become their transitional object in human connection, and they can't have a sense that they can breathe or exist without that therapist. And that means to me that the therapist hasn't really done the job of helping that person separate and individuate.
Well, I was saying that the patient therefore is
entity.
dependent, not independent.
Correct. Right.
And your goal, I know, is to teach your patients how to fish, not give them one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, baby, my heart is full of love and desire for you. So come on down and do what you've got to do. You started this fire down in my soul. Now can't you see it's burning out of control? So come down and satisfy the need in me, 'cause your good lovin' set me free.
Okay, so there is obviously a love and a hate and a desire for the object
a burning
of the
need
therapy,
here.
and a burning need for the therapy. Do what you've got to do. In other words, cure me. Please cure me. Please fix me.
Yeah.
Please know what it is that hurts me. And a therapist is really needing to study what it is that's really burning down in their soul. That's the darkness. That's the wound. That's festering in there. So everyone has a desire to have somebody know them on a deeper level, because if they're not felt as though they're known, then they might feel that they're out of control. And that's the problem, is nobody's really connected to them to know them in that deep way. So they're wanting that from the therapist.
So, and then we've got our chorus. Oh, baby, my heart is full of love and desire for you. So come on down and do what you got to do. You started this fire down in my soul. Now can't you see it's burning out of control? So come on down and satisfy the need of me, because you're only good. You're because only your good loving can set me free.
Okay, I want
So-
to talk about this sentence a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Satisfying the need in me. These are all the narcissistic supplies or the human needs like touch, eye contact, nurturing, breastfeeding, the primitive needs of the baby that were never met. And so the patient is yearning for the therapist to satisfy the needs in them. However, if the therapist is only doing symptom management and venting techniques, they may satisfy the needs of them, but they're not really healing the hole in the soul, as I call it, that caused this wound in the beginning. So then this is going to be the seed of dependency, and this is the meal ticket for the therapist to keep the patient coming back and venting and
meal ticket
venting
for the
and
therapist.
pining, and that is just so, in my mind, so unethical and so not okay.
So this next stanza would be, and the last one we're going to do would be from the therapist's perspective. Don't leave me this way. I can't survive. I can't stay alive without your love. Oh, baby, don't leave me this way. I can't exist. I will surely miss your tender kiss. So don't leave me this way.
Well, from a therapist's point of view, please don't leave me this way. Like, what if I can't pay my bills? What if your leaving makes me feel bad about myself? What if now I feel like a bad therapist because you left me this way? Clearly, the therapist has issues. So also make
indeed.
sure that your therapist has worked out many of his or her own issues before you sign up.
Yes, and the worst thing you want is a therapist that has issues with their issues.
And in that case, she better have, or he better have, a lot of tissues for your issues.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think we've covered it. This has been Dr. Judy WTF. I am your host, Walt Lusk. And of course, we have Dr. Judy Rosenberg. We're here every Thursday night live here at UBN. And we're going to close with our song, Don't Leave Me This Way. You can check us out on drjudywtf.com and, of course, on Facebook and Twitter. And again, if you have a need or you want our peaceful healing disconnect dialogue PhD, you can request it at info@drjudywtf.com. So God bless everyone. Until next time.
God bless.
Thanks for being on our couch.